Welcome everyone to Educational Session 5A, My Brother's Keeper, Lessons from Crowdsourcing the Records of a University Community. I'm Danielle F. Sorda, and I'll be assisting with moderating this session. I will provide a link to the 2024 SSA Virtual Meeting Rules of Engagement for a virtual conference in the chat. Please take time to familiarize yourself with them. The session is being recorded and will be available after the conference concludes. Actually, it will be available right after this session, probably. You can turn closed captioning on by pressing the Show Captions button in the menu bar at the bottom of your screen. I'll be monitoring the chat, so if you need help or have any concerns, please reach out to me so I can assist you. And as a reminder, there is an anonymous function in the Q&A. Thanks and enjoy the session.
Okay. So yes, thank you for that introduction. My name is Jess Tucker, and I am the University Archivist at the University of North Texas. And I'm just getting over a cold, so I do apologize if I'm sounding super congested. This presentation is going to be in 3 parts. I will be the first speaker and kind of giving y'all an introduction to Keeper and showing y'all around on what it is. So like I said, we're from North Texas, and you can see our beautiful library there in the first photo. Okay. So Keeper is there in the title, but what exactly is Keeper? Well, basically, Keeper is how we are keeping track of a lot of our student records. Not the things that professors are producing, like grades or confidential things, but the things that students are creating. So Keeper was started in 2017, and it started, hang on just a second. It started because we don't have a yearbook anymore at UNT, but we still wanted to document, student activities, student organizations. We wanted to get that kind of, what is it like to be a student at the University of North Texas? Specifically, we were spurred on by that urge to document some of the social justice movements that were going on campus in fall of 2016. We were receiving other records about the protests and other movements. For example, we received some of the protest signs, but we weren't getting those kind of action shots with the students. We weren't getting what kind of the visual element of that. So we developed Keeper. That was before my time. I've only been here about a year, but it was developed by my predecessor and our other staff. It is an open source tool, and I have to warn you straight up, I am not a very technical person. I love using Keeper, but as far as the guts that go into Keeper, I am not the best person to ask. There will be a note at the end of my presentation about who to ask, but it is available on GitHub. So if you see this and you think, wow, I really want to do this for my university, then you can go on GitHub and you too can develop your own Keeper variety. Keeper is managed by the University Archivist, and that would be me. So I keep an eye on it and make sure we're not getting anything really, really weird or inappropriate. And it is hosted on the Portal to Texas History. Once we get the records through Keeper, and we like to say that Keeper is the method, Keeper is the way that we get the records, and the destination is the University Memory Collection over here. That's the name of the collection after the records have been ingested. Okay, so that's what Keeper is. What do we actually have in Keeper? Well, it's to give us Keeper at a glance. These are the stats from the University Memory Collection. So far, there have been over 100,000 uses. That's of last month. As you can see, the vast majority of Keeper is actually photographs. We've got a little bit of text. We've got about 45 videos. At my last count, we have 12 cats. Not actual cats, I'm very sorry, but we have a lot of photos of cats. Cats are a very important part of student life, apparently. And we got a great little example here, Lance, who is helping study, but mostly just being adorable. We also have 4 main groups of records of categories that we get, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about those in a minute. All right. So as I said a few slides ago, Keeper really was spurred on by this desire to document the social justice movements, especially in the absence of a student yearbook that would ordinarily document student life and student organizations. We did have a student yearbook for many years, but we don't this time. Okay, so we all know what happened. 2020, COVID hit. All of a sudden, everyone was isolated, just like other places. Everyone was going home, everyone was working alone. And suddenly people started to realize, okay, this is something that is very different than what has happened before. This is something we need to document. This is something that posterity is going to want to know about. So my predecessor, Rachel Zipperer, made a blog post on our website asking for students to submit their documentation of COVID experiences. A lot of these are photographs, like we see this mask tree, which is something I think that all of us had during COVID, and photographs of introducing new babies to relatives. We also have a lot of photographs of people's home workstations. But UNT is also a school that really values creative expression and the creative arts. So Rachel encouraged people to submit things that weren't just photographs, but other creative expressions. Like, for example, this journal that we see up here that someone made of their COVID experiences. Suddenly Keeper became a very, very important way to connect and to share what was going on. I'm sure I don't have to say that isolation was very difficult for a lot of people, but Keeper became a very good way to connect with other students. Right. So I said that there were 4 main groups of information that we get on Keeper. The vast majority of things that we get are students and their coursework. We have things all the way from the beginning, like orientation, as we see in the corner with the mean green photo. We've got those excited and hopeful young students at the start of their semester making the eagle claw, our university symbol there, all the way to the end of their student career. And we get a lot of graduation photos. We also have a lot of photos of students, what they're doing in their coursework, the books they're reading, the skills they're learning, but also the fun they're having, seeing different interesting things on campus, casino night, all the different things that students are doing and learning while they're at UNT. Probably the next biggest category of things that we get are things related to current events. So definitely we have been documenting the protests that have gone on, protests, counter protests, different social justice movements. And we already talked about COVID. Obviously, there's a lot of documentation of that. We've got some great chalk art, including this piece here that was after Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. And Keeper is especially important in the case of that because chalk art is so ephemeral. I mean, we have beautiful things that have been drawn and then they're gone at the first rain, but we got them documented. Other things very recently, like our partial totality of the eclipse that we had in Denton. And it's not just students and things on the UNT campus. We also have things from the city of Denton overall. For example, now the square is for everyone. This is a reference to a Confederate statue being removed from the Denton County Courthouse lawn. Okay. And we also have folks on campus taking pictures of the campus itself. We have a really beautiful campus and we get a lot of photos of that, especially when there's unusual weather things like historic floods or snow. We always get a lot of snow pictures. That's not very, very common in Denton. And sometimes it's just when the campus is looking pretty, like this lovely walk that we have here on a fall day. Or if there's some sort of interesting event or something like that, like the ofrenda we had at Willis Library, we get a lot of those photos too. And the 4th category, and we're probably not supposed to have favorites, but I think this is my favorite category of Keeper, is just kind of all the stuff that makes up everyday life. It's, it's not your classes, it's not your organizations, it's not the formal stuff, but it's all the stuff that makes up life. And that's where we get lots of awesome pet photos. We get all the hobby photos, cooking and crafting and birthday parties. And I love this sonogram announcement with the gremlin there. Oh, we're going to save questions to the end. I see you raise your hand, Janine, but we will have time for Q&A at the end. But yeah, I love these little gremlins here. I love all these everyday life things. Okay, so we've talked now about what Keeper is and what goes into Keeper. So how do we actually use Keeper? Well, Keeper is there on our library website. And when you go to the library website, when you go to that web address, this is what you're going to see. And it will give you some information, and you can see, you can look at some of the other areas of special collections like the University Archive. And you can see little Lucky there, our university mascot, the white squirrel. And this site will tell you a little bit about Keeper, about what to preserve and how you can help us. And then at the bottom of the page, we have our handy Start Using Keeper Now button. Now, when you click that button, you are agreeing to library policy and it's taking the place of a gift agreement. But yeah, if you click it, that takes you right to the place where you can start uploading. So basically what you do, you drag your files into that window and do make sure it is the actual files. Links do not work. And this may seem obvious, but no blank pages. Sometimes people think they're uploading something and they're actually not. We do accept anything born digital. It can be born digital or it can be scanned. So it might be a selfie on the first class day. It might be a scan of a football program. Either one is okay. Make sure you have your contact information on here because sometimes we have questions about what exactly is in the photo, what is in the video, what you're sending us. And hugely, hugely important, please give us a description of the item. I'm sure all repositories have photos that are wonderful and interesting, and we have no idea what they are. So we are counting on the creators to give us that information to let us know what exactly is in the photo. Please tell us what's going on there. We do ask that the person be the copyright holder of what they're uploading. And also, I like to stress to people, remember, this is going to be public. It is going to be in the University Memory Collection. It will be online. So don't put anything personal or confidential. And, you know, I will be reviewing it, but still, that's really important. Okay, and of course we have the CAPTCHA like everything does now. We have our check the box to make sure that you are giving these to UNT, and then you upload. It really is that simple. And if you have done it successfully, you get this screen of thank you for sharing your memories. And of course, you know, asking if you want to donate to UNT, if you want to upload more files, all that stuff. And it's also got our contact button there. So if you have questions, you can ask us. Okay, so what happens after that? Well, like I said, everything is reviewed by an archivist. In this case, that's me, the university archivist. One of the things that we were really concerned about in the beginning was getting inappropriate stuff, nudity or drug use or something. But knock on wood, so far that has not been an issue. I don't know if we just have really responsible students or what, but they have not submitted anything like that. We do sometimes get some spam, we get some broken links, things like that. So I will filter those out. But once the submission is approved, they will get the standard metadata, and then they go into the university memory collection, that thing that I showed you at the beginning, and then they will be preserved, publicly accessible and available for research. They will be there for posterity to see. Okay. So Keeper is great. It's very easy to use. It's a great way to get records from students, which unfortunately is a group that we don't always have as much as we would like to have. But there have definitely been some challenges with Keeper. The biggest challenge has just been getting the word out, getting people to know that Keeper exists and that Keeper is an option. We have created some promotional outreach materials like the History is in Your Hands one here that we give out at outreach events and things like that. Another big help to us has been there have been some professors that have sent us things. For example, we do allow faculty, alumni, and also the general public to submit things on Keeper. So we haven't gotten nearly as much from faculty and alumni, but they can also send records to Keeper. And some professors have also offered extra credit to students who send Keeper. Todd Moya is a professor that we have a really good relationship with that also encourages his students to send photos for extra credit. And I love this photo because it just captures so much. It's like, professor, COVID, social justice, all in one photo down there. Tie to your talons, your eagle talons. I already mentioned the spam and the fact that we are dependent on that creator metadata. We do, unfortunately, if people are in a hurry, if they're submitting a lot, they might not give us a lot of description or maybe only a few words of description. If we had all the time in the world, we could contact everybody and ask them for their metadata. If they don't submit it, we could ask them for descriptions. But realistically speaking, we're crunched for time. And also it may be that the student has graduated. Maybe they're no longer at UNT. As I said, no inappropriate use so far. Occasionally the problems with the links, but we also have the problem of we do get a lot of different formats, and just like anyone who deals with digital records, we have to keep up with different changing record types and keep abreast of that. But on the whole, Keeper has been great. I've mentioned all our cute little animal photos, including our albino squirrels. By the way, by showing you this albino squirrel, you will all have good luck. Supposedly, if you see an albino squirrel on the UNT campus, you'll pass your exams. I think it means you're going to have a great conference. Where do we go from here? Well, I don't want to get too political, but I'm sure most of y'all know that SB 17 in Texas has limited many of the activities that we can do. We have already unfortunately had to cancel some of our Pride events. So student-driven records, student-created records are becoming even more important. If it's coming from the students, there's a lot more flexibility. As we get more and more photos into Keeper, we're also kind of having multiple streams, not just student records, but also things from our OSHA Institute, our Emeritus College. That's become a different stream, and we have a collection for that. And we also have things from the Texas Fashion Collection that my colleague Eli is going to talk about. There will continue to be this education component. We have people who say, oh, what I'm doing is not historical. It's just me, it's every day. So educating people about how, yes, this is very historical. This is very important. And also on the other pole, educating people that Keeper is not just current events, but something that posterity is going to want to see. One of the ways I say to people is when you look at a yearbook and you see your grandmother and you see those hairstyles and you see that fashion, don't you think your grandchildren are going to want to see that? You might be embarrassed, but your grandchildren are going to want to see that. But basically, just keep documenting those lived experiences. Keep sending to Keeper, check it out, look it over, let us know if you have questions. But yeah, it's been great, and I will turn it over to my colleague, Meagan.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jess.
You're
Let
welcome.
me just get my screen shared real quick. And just a reminder, I'm not sure if we mentioned this before we began, but we will be saving all of our questions until the end. So please feel free to keep popping them into the chat and the Q&A. If you don't see us acknowledging them, that's because we're going to get to them once Eli finishes their presentation. So, share screen here. All right, great. Hello, and thank you for joining our session on the Keeper application. Today, I will be presenting on some of the ways we've considered or used Keeper in the University Memory Collection as a tool to capture student creative works and projects. As a brief introduction, my name is Meagan May. I've been the Public Services Librarian with UNT Special Collections since 2019. I have a background in art history and act as the Special Collections Curator for artist books, zines, and related materials. I've been the instruction coordinator for the department since 2022, and I work with faculty at UNT on our faculty coursework development grant and material needs. My primary research interests include a lot of different things, but I would say my two biggest areas of focus right now are on zines and DIY culture and Dallas Underground newspapers and comics. But I do work in archives and consider myself a bit of a popular culture sponge, so I do have about 15 additional interests if anybody is curious about asking me about those later. I wanted to begin this presentation by talking about UNT Special Collections instruction in general, because we have been seeing an increase in recent years. We currently average about 40 classes per semester, and most full-time staff participate in instruction in some capacity or another. Around half of the instruction sessions that we lead come from a partnership with the College of Visual Arts and Design and their Art 1800 Foundations course that has an artist book assignment. During visits, students receive an overview of artist books and complete a worksheet while viewing examples from our collection before having a guided discussion to conclude their visits. Additionally, we see students from other areas in CVAD, such as typography, book arts, fashion design, art history, and photography. Outside of CVAD, we receive requests for instruction from areas such as history, English, anthropology, communications, research methods, and more. In order to best accommodate faculty and students, we offer both synchronous and asynchronous sessions and offer faculty the chance to place special collections materials on reserve within our reading room for students to view throughout the semester. And programs such as our faculty coursework development grant and the partnerships we've developed from these collaborations have allowed us to build strong relationships with faculty. And in turn, those that work with us also tend to be our biggest supporters. So I do expect our instruction numbers to continue rising as these relationships grow. So right off the bat, when discussing Keeper, I want to point out that submissions of student work are not entirely new and have been present within the University Memory Collection prior to the projects I'll be discussing today.
Hey, Megan.
Yes.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. There's like 2 gray boxes on your slides that are blocking some of your text. I don't know if maybe there's a screen sharing issue. Maybe turn it off and turn it back on and see if that fixes it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm sorry. I don't know what's happening there.
No, that's interesting.
The first slide, it wasn't an issue, but it's blocking some of the text on your current slide. So I thought I'd let you know.
So sorry, y'all. Yeah, I appreciate that. Let me share my screen one more time. How about that?
It somehow got worse. I'm not sure what's happening.
Okay.
There's like 4 large gray boxes on top of your display.
What if I go to this slide?
It's like it's on your actual screen for some reason. I don't know what's happening there.
I don't either. I'm so sorry, y'all. Let me Zoom boxes that appear when you screen share.
Oh yeah, but you didn't have the chat up or anything over your slides, I don't think. So
no, and I just currently have this open. Let me...
Yeah, it's like it's
sharing?
translating that information from your screen here with the boxes on it. So I don't know what's causing that. We may just have to go forward with it.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, y'all.
That's okay. We could add the slides as a resource after the session.
Yes.
Because it looks like it's some sort of display communication issue. So if you'll email those to me, I can get them added as a resource.
Absolutely. And I'm going to try this too, because I do have a video. So I'm going to try the not optimizing for video clip and see if that works real quick.
That fixed it.
Did that fix it?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well,
sorry.
No,
thank you.
No, that's totally fine. I'm so sorry. I apologize on that. Woo-hoo. All right. Learn something new on Zoom, even what, 4 years after we're using it constantly? Okay. Let me get started on this. All right, so these are just 2 examples of the kind of student work you will see if you visit the University Memory Collection. The screenshots on this slide that you can now see shows 2 students of an Info 5450 Rare Books course at UNT who have each uploaded videos of themselves discussing and showing their finished project for a Create a Quarto assignment. Lindsay, the student on the right, even went as far as to upload her accompanying photographs of her work to show the layout and text featured inside, which is Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. I would say that in most examples I've come across, student submissions of this kind have come from students taking courses in library science program at UNT or in an adjacent field of study. I would also like to note that this type of student work submission is the most in line with the type of submissions that I'd like to see more of as I push for students and faculty that work with special collections to submit their creative projects to Keeper. It is my hope that as more student work is added, the courses they're related to will broaden. This is a bit of a different example, but this is technically a student sharing a photograph of their work. In this case, they are sharing a screenshot of their information organization project next to a copy of Dante's The Inferno. The quote on this slide is direct from their description and definitely provides some context. Full disclosure, I really like this submission. I think it's very funny, and I think it showcases the frustrating side of student life with a great sense of humor. But like I hinted at on the previous slide, I really don't consider these to be the types of student work that I'm talking about when I talk about this presentation. But I did want to include it because it's just a fun example of how Keeper can be used to document not just student life and student accomplishments, but those really unique experiences that go along with them. And then likewise, as Jess mentioned, are the always fun extra credit posts. These posts are submitted to Keeper by students for extra credit from their instructors. Generally, again, we see these more in library and information science related courses. And for those of you wondering, that is not the only smiling thumbs up picture of Robert Beaton that we have in the collection that he submitted. And again, I would not consider these the type of student works in Keeper that I'm aspiring towards, but I think the extra credit route can be a great incentive for getting students to try out and use Keeper. But on to the main portion of this presentation. The idea to first use Keeper and the University Memory Collection as a repository for student works and projects pretty much came about during a short-lived but very fun and successful collaboration I had with an Art 2020 digital tools professor, Meredith Colley. Students in her course were assigned to design and create paper dolls that were representative of their present lives and experiences, and to better understand the history of paper dolls and the ways they've been used throughout the past to push societal and gender normative ideals. Students would visit UNT special collections and view historical materials from the Patricia Fertel paper doll collection before starting their project. These are just a few pictures of students in our classroom taking a look at things. Responses to these visits were overwhelmingly positive. Students enjoyed viewing the historical examples of a variety of paper dolls, and physical construction really helped with things like stand type ideas, things like that. And they gained a better understanding visually and through discussion on how their dolls would differ and be reacting to the dolls of the past. The resulting dolls that students created were displayed in the UNT Union in the fall of 2022 in an exhibit titled Not Your Mother's Paper Dolls, which saw a great turnout and featured an introduction about the Fertel collection written by me, along with a few reproductions of the dolls from the collection on display alongside student work. Sensing that there was a need to capture and share the work students were creating that were so representational of their lives, Meredith and I began to talk about the ways we could continue this collaboration in future semesters, and began discussing how we could possibly create a digital exhibit component to preserve student work so that classes in future semesters could participate in an exhibit element even when a physical exhibit space like the Union Gallery was unavailable. I did just want to take a few moments now and show some examples of student dolls that were created. All the dolls here on this slide are ones that were featured in the Not Your Mother's Paper Doll exhibit in the UNT Union Gallery. And as you can see, they did just an amazing job of creating works that showcase the present, diversity, inclusive body types, different personal styles. It was really amazing to hear how these dolls connected to the students they made them, whether they were self-portraits or a family and close friends, their partners. I'm a particular fan of the Gen X mom doll that's there in the top center. And some students even explored a wholly imagined future and depicted non-humans. There were kittens and cyborgs and aliens and just really cool and wild stuff, but they aren't in the University Memory Collection. I know, huge bummer. So what happened? And that's for all of you Fred Willard fans out there. I'm sure like at least two of you are going to recognize that. Well, in short, Keeper didn't cross my mind until the chance to use it was way in the rearview mirror. It was just really a mistake on my end. The original plan had been to collect digital rights agreement forms from students and create a digital exhibit that we could pull those images that were in the digital library. If I had thought of Keeper, it probably would have simplified this process a lot and saved a lot of time for ourselves and our students. But even if we had gone the Keeper route, it may not have avoided a lack of student participation. Turns out that collecting digital rights agreements forms from students for projects they made in a class that's wrapping up or occurred in the previous semester is pretty challenging, and it wasn't as successful as either one of us had hoped it would be. And additionally, before we could try to regroup and think of an additional approach to this project, Meredith became lead faculty for another foundational course. So congratulations to her, but now there was new faculty in charge of the Art 2020 Digital Tools course that needed to sort of settle in and adjust their curriculum. Not as all lost on this project though. This spring I connected with one of the new faculty leading the digital tools course, and they do plan to continue the paper doll project that Meredith started. So it's my hope that we'll be able to sort of meet and get the ball rolling this fall or in spring of 2025 and try out Keeper this time. But not every example I'm going to share is a failure in this presentation. So in 2023, I was contacted by Dr. Sarah Peters, an instructor for a digital communications for art and creative entrepreneurship course, about doing a virtual visit overview of special collections resources. This overview was to assist students as they began research on an upcoming assignment to create a 1-minute informational video about a sculptural work of art on the UNT Denton campus. The assignment required students to cite primary sources, and since these works were located on the UNT campus, it was likely that our university-related archives would be a great place to start. When Dr. Peters initially contacted me, once again, Keeper was not at the forefront of my mind, and this was not the aha that I wish it was. But it did come pretty soon after, as Dr. Peters described what students would be creating, and I began preparing to assist them with their videos, the research for them, that these would make excellent additions to the university memory collection. Dr. Peters was all in on having students submit their final projects, and I really think that that helped make sure that we received all of them, of which there were 5. These are just screenshots of the thumbnail and description that you would see in the university memory collection. As you can see, each student focused on a different artwork around a campus, and each description includes the members of each group, the tools that they use to create their video, and their course information. And since I have been showing screenshots, I did just want to take a second and show one of these 60-second videos. Please let me know if you can't hear music on this.
The iconic UNT sculpture in High Places was created by Gerald Belsiar for the University Centennial in 1990. In High Places is 21 feet high, 9 feet wide, and 1,900 pounds, depicting an eagle. Sculpted to be perceived as being in motion, the 12-foot eagle is placed at a diagonal tilt upon its right wing, fully extended in flight. The base of the statue has a bronze plaque commemorating the 1890 to 1990 centennial celebration at UNT. 60 benefactors listed in 3 rows identify the names of the university alumni that participated in rating the artist fee, and the sculpture is signed and dated by the artist on the back of the base. The statue is located on the Denton campus between the Hurley Administration Building, the Information Sciences Building, and the University Union.
I love that shift in music at the end, and like really cool. These are great additions to our university memory collection, and I don't want to say UNT marketing should take notes, but I really enjoy this video and the others that these students created. Oh no, sorry. Okay, so to start wrapping up this presentation, I'd like to take a few moments to talk about why Keeper. Well, first of all, and perhaps most important to many of us, it's the most time efficient option. The university memory collection is already established, so there's no need to go through the process of creating new collections every time we want to work with student creative works in different courses. If we receive several submissions for a particular course, we can always create a subseries, and there's already staff assigned to manage and process Keeper submissions. Jess, our university archivist. So submissions of student works can be absorbed into existing workflows already in place. I also think Keeper is a great choice because of the descriptive control students have over their submissions and how user-friendly it is for them to provide those. They get to discuss the work in their own terms, or hopefully, as was mentioned in one of the challenges of the previous presentation. And finally, and this is obvious, but Keeper is a proven and effective means of documenting student lives and experiences at UNT. It's been around for a bit now. We're seeing an increase in usage, and I don't know about you all, but I do not have time to reinvent the wheel and figure out if there's a slightly better method for doing this. So although I'm still figuring out the best ways to use Keeper with instruction and project-based collaborations, I have already learned some lessons along the way. The first is that faculty support is crucial. If they don't care, students probably won't either. Having Dr. Peters incorporate a Keeper submission element into the project with students early on is one of the main reasons that I believe we captured all of the video projects from this class and not just one or two. Because ultimately, the number of student work and project submissions we receive will rely on the students submitting them. If they don't submit the work, we can't add it to the collection, and the more invested they are or the more incentive they have, the likelier it is we'll receive submissions. This is where I really think things like extra credit opportunities can really help if needed, if that's something faculty are willing to offer. It's also important to remember that adding a Keeper element will take up time. There will have to be an overview, additional work with faculty to show them how Keeper operates, assisting students with submissions, etc. And so make sure you consider this. How much time do you have with students? Will you be able to accomplish the other goals of the visit if you spend time on Keeper? It's a really cool element, but is it practical for this session or request, or is there a better approach this time around? Because not every project will be suitable for Keeper, and that's okay. At this point in time, I really see these efforts being most beneficial with classes that are focused on projects that are creative or artistic in nature and are special collections focused, whether that be through the subject of book arts or book history, or a project they've completed after spending time with our materials. UNT does already offer a couple of different repositories for student work, our UNT Scholarly Works and our UNT Data Repository. However, I believe Keeper in the University Memory Collection also has its place in capturing and preserving student work, especially with creative ones. So with these lessons and considerations, they've really helped me build some goals for myself moving forward. The first is to make sure that I'm properly educating faculty on the use and importance of Keeper in the University Memory Collection, why we use it, and maybe more importantly, how it's used. Ensuring faculty have a good understanding of Keeper and how to make a submission will make sure that they're able to help students directly in the classroom and prevent any delays that would occur if they were to have to stop and email me or another special collection staff member. Along with this, I think it'll be important to promote Keeper not just as a repository, but also as a tool for students and faculty alike. As more submissions are received, faculty and students can use the University Memory Collection for inspiration and research on creative processes, techniques, and final works. Or if faculty are curious about how special collections can benefit their class, they can see the different ways in which primary sources and other archival and rare materials can be incorporated into student work. I also believe it will be crucial to identify opportunities to use Keeper as early as possible so that it can be incorporated from the start and not added as an afterthought. This will help with educating faculty, scheduling time for an overview, and accommodating times to help students if needed easier and a lot less stressful. I also believe accomplishing this will be as simple as incorporating a Keeper use consideration into the steps that are already in place to schedule and plan visits when we receive instruction requests from faculty. And finally, I'd like to spend the time to create a handout or some sort of document for students and faculty about Keeper, specifically for submitting creative student projects. We have some literature on Keeper, but most of it is pretty broad and focused on the general student experience. I think having a polished handout that doesn't just provide directions on how to make a submission, but also why they should, could potentially help increase submission rates in the case of creative student works. This could also assist with making it easier to incorporate Keeper into visits and ultimately save time if that is a concern. And with that, that completes my presentation. Thank you so much for your time. My contact information is there on the screen, and I will pass it over to Eli for our final presentation.
Thank you, Megan.
Of course.
All right, can everyone see my presentation all right? Cool.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Eli Esparza. I'm the Digitization and Metadata Archivist for UNT Special Collections Department. Today, I'll be walking through an ongoing project between the Texas Fashion Collection and the Special Collections Department that presented itself from Keeper app donation. In April of 2023, Annette Becker, the director of the Texas Fashion Collection, began to donate photographic and video materials from the nonprofit organization, whose sole purpose is the dedication to the preservation and documentation of historically significant fashion through the eras to UNT's Keep Wrap. And this is their landing page, and when they were celebrating when 600 new assets went onto the digital library. The materials donated document the various events and people connected to the University of North Texas from the Texas Fashion Collection Department of the College of Visual Arts and Design. Through photographs and other materials, it covers items such as ceremonies, facilities, workshop, campus instruction, tours, exhibition, and fashion ensembles. The best part of the collection is the behind-the-scenes work that goes on the Texas Fashion Collection, which is an important part of the department's documentation. Annette has this to say about the donation. They've been sitting in random folders on her server and on my cell phone for entirely too long. And I know that many of my colleagues and TFC stakeholders have been grateful to have access to them. It means so much to us to have these files out of our internal servers and where people can actually find them. Many of our staff are also excited that the images of them are being saved too. So thanks for helping them feel like the important people that they are. We are preserving history, not only of the exhibitions and fashion, but of the staff that have contributed to the projects over the years. The donated materials encompass TFC's earliest formative years from 1996 to the present. There are over 1,140 items from the collection available for public access, and more are donated monthly as TFC is still active within the campus and local community. I began my partnership with Annette in May of 2023 after notifying her that her donated materials were present online under the University Memory Collection. This is the main digital collection for materials submitted through the Keep Wrap, not yet realizing how massive this digital collection would be. However, as soon as Annette surpassed 200 assets donated and more were being submitted, a new digital collection was created, the University Photography from the Texas Fashion Collection. I'm so sorry. I felt that it was necessary to narrow down such a large collection to be separate, but still part of the original digital collection from the University Memory Collection. Materials donated to the Keeper app for the Texas Fashion Collection are included in two collections, with the main collection being the University Photography from the Texas Fashion Collection. The title was inspired and created by other collections of ours, University Photography Collection and Photographing UNT. The University Photography Collection draws from the archives photographs depicting images of UNT sports, UNT alumni, and alumni events, and images of the changing and growing North Texas State Campus to the University of North Texas. Photographing UNT depicts images of various buildings, events, and ceremonies from the University of North Texas. Faculty, staff, students, and community members can be seen in the photographs as well. So this is an example of one of the digital assets submitted from Annette Becker that is included in two different collections. So for instance, if one person was looking under the University Memory, they could come across this image and be linked to the University Photography from the Texas Fashion Collection to browse as well. These are just two examples of fashion-related items available in the digital library in the Photographing UNT and University Photography collection, which is how I was inspired to come up with the title University Photography from the Texas Fashion Collection. Meaning specifically, like all photos in the collection title belong and were created from that one department. Creating an individual collection for the Texas fashion materials was important, again, for linking digital materials together to help people browse efficiently. This is a look at our Keeper app interface and an example of a submission from Annette Becker with motive photographs to be added to the digital collection. Annette is great with adding contextual descriptions for the files, answering the who, what, where, and when. That the metadata is simple and easy, which is how we were able to process over 1,000 files online in 1 year. This is a look at the recent submission made to the Keeper app, a file that at the time of the presentation has not yet been uploaded to the digital library. The photograph has been given a unique identifier with the institution, the collection number, the year of acquisition. Since this project started in 2023, we will keep that number. This is the 15th donation of 2023, and we are currently at 1,142 plus objects in this collection total. The information Annette Becker provided via Keeper is then converted into machine-readable metadata, which I've shown here. This XML file will then be attached to the digital photograph and is uploaded online. One of the last things I consider to be one of the most important steps in processing this digital collection is linking the materials by series based on events or exhibition. There are currently 74 series titles for the University of Photography from the Texas Fashion Collection to search through. This helps narrow down artifacts even more. If an individual only wanted to look at photographs from the hats, humor, and high design, they could simply search the series titles or follow the link that is available above the digital record. And then here I'm just including some examples of some of the photographs that have been donated. These are examples of mannequins dressed in fashion for exhibitions. This is a photograph of Annette Becker standing in one of the exhibitions that she and her staff have designed. We have mannequins wearing some of the artifacts for student instruction sessions. And then this is some of the behind the scenes work that goes on in the Texas Fashion Collection. We have students photographing artifacts for preservation on the digital library. Here we have a photograph of Annette giving a tour of the TFC's archive and warehouse. And then we have a photograph of Annette Becker and Janelle, her assistant, at the North Park Center Mall, carrying a mannequin to be put on display. Overall, I've loved working on this collection. It's been wonderful to see all the images, as I feel like I've truly got to experience a lot of the exhibitions and work in real time. And as always, it's such a great feeling to make something available online for preservation. You can follow us at UNT Special Collections or visit UNT Libraries. And thank you very much.
Awesome. And we've got so much time for questions. So I noticed that there's a lot in the Q&A. There's also a lot in the chat. I guess we'll start with the Q&A. We'll kind of go through there and then we'll get to the chat. I think we should have plenty of time to get to everything. If you did enter your question into the webinar chat and you want it answered sooner than we get to that, you can always re-put it back into the Q&A and it'll be got to sooner. So we'll just start at the top if that sounds good to y'all, Jess and Eli. And so the first question is, how do we publicize Keeper to students?
Well, okay, that's definitely an ongoing battle, but we really make it part of all outreach. Anytime the library is doing any kind of outreach, we take the promotional materials that we have for Keeper. We have some little cards as well as the brochures. We get those on all the tables, and I am a very boots on the ground, I guess, kind of archivist. I do as much as I can, time permitting, go to university events and on-campus events. And if I see people taking photos, I will pass out cards and say, please submit them to Keeper. Anytime we talk to a class, I will say, by the way, did you know about Keeper? I am very evangelistic, but yeah, it's definitely an ongoing thing to get people to know about Keeper.
And yeah, I know, same with me when I'm in instruction and handling outreach and things like that. We recently did a symposium, and just in the beginning slides, you know, we would say like, hey, as you take photos of today, please consider submitting them. I don't know if we got any submissions, but we'll keep yelling about it every chance we get. Next question is, do you receive duplicate photos related to the same subject? And if so, do you retain all of them, correct?
Actually, no. Like I said, a university archivist, which is me, reviews all of them before they're accepted. So if I see duplicates, then I only keep one copy.
Eli, did you have anything for the Texas fashion collection with those? Oh no, you're muted.
Yeah. I've been very good. I have a very great memory when it comes to photography, especially being like the sole person who looks at all of the materials that Annette has donated. And she is also very good at making sure that she hasn't duplicated anything as well. We do have some that I would consider very close in style, but not necessarily duplicates. And so then I would label such as like 1, 2, and 3.
All right, and then we got a couple of questions that kind of go together. So I'm going to say both of these first. They both have to do with documenting events like protests and protecting the privacy and safety of protesters. So the first is, how do you balance documenting events like protests with protecting the privacy and safety of protesters who may not consent to having their photos taken? And then for things like protests, do you ever restrict materials for a certain amount of time for the security and safety of students? Thinking of everything going on across college campuses right now, in particular, as an example.
This is a tough one. We have been in the camp of erring on the side of asking for forgiveness rather than permission. Our protests thus far on the UNT campus have been peaceful. We haven't had the sort of volatile situations like we've had at the University of Texas. So it has not been as much of a concern, but we are also very receptive to any contact from any students who do see themselves in photos. And of course, we would be willing to take those down. In my time here, like I said, I've only been here a year. That has not been something that's happened, but we have had people contact us from the main university photography collection and say, hey, that's me in a photo. Now, we haven't had anyone so far asked to be taken down, but they have said, hey, I want my name on that. I want people to know that I am in that photo. So we are basically asking for people to contact us and let us know. But yeah, that is definitely an issue I'm aware of, and I'm not sure what a really great answer is.
The next question we have is, the breadth of submissions from students is so impressive. The student experience is so hard to document in the archive. Was any of this kind of thing collected prior to Keeper through student groups or student life or anything? It seems so unique.
Oof. It's hard for me to speak to that. Since as long as I've been here, we've had Keeper. I know my predecessor is in the room. Hi, Rachel. If she may have something to add. Of course, we had yearbooks for a long time. I don't remember the exact year they stopped, but I know at least for the 90s. And so that documented a lot. On very rare occasions, we do get materials from student organizations. We just got a batch from the Printmaking Association. Our late lamented Multicultural Center was very good at documenting students. So piecemeal we did get from organizations and from students, but outside of the yearbook, I'm not aware of a whole lot of other things. But like I said, that may be a fault in my recent knowledge.
Yeah, it looks like in the chat, Rachel mentioned that Keeper was set up before her time too.
Oh.
Yeah, potentially maybe Morgan could ask if Morgan.
I think Morgan's in the chat too.
She may, I think she may be the staff member in this session that was here when it rolled out. Yeah, it was a Morgan project. So yeah, Morgan, if you want to put something in the chat, we'll keep answering questions here. And then I think this next set of questions will be really for both you, Jess, and Eli. So these are all kind of related to the technical side of Keeper. So how often do you review submissions and how long does it take to review them? And how does it fit into your workflow as the university archivist with your other responsibilities? And then there's also some things like if you also want to talk about like how much processing time is dedicated to Keeper, where do submissions go while under review? Yeah, we've got a lot of really technical Keeper-y questions if y'all want to address some of that.
Okay, I've been trying to look at some of them. We do have student employees that one of the great joys of working at a university that help us keep on top of the metadata. The biggest times for Keeper are at the beginning and the end of semester, especially the end of semester when professors are asking for Keeper photos for extra credit, or students are sending in photos from the time of what they did the past semester, their experiences. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. A lot of times if someone submits a lot of photos, there's a lot of copy and paste. You have very similar metadata. The visual review, it's usually pretty obvious pretty quickly if it's going to be an okay photo or not. Like I said, we've been really lucky that people have not submitted naked butts or anything like that. So I don't have to reject a lot. And yeah, people don't really submit a lot of privacy things. We've been very fortunate with that. So it doesn't really take a lot of time. And I try and check at least once a month. If it's at the end of the semester, I might do that more often. Let's see. And Keeper is open source, so I mean the cost is the maintenance of it, but yeah, you can get that on GitHub.
And then for me, when it comes to processing the Texas Fashion Collection, I usually try to check once a week because I know that Annette is really active within the UNT community. And so there's always an instruction or an exhibition. So she is always actually submitting photographs through the Keeper app. I think in the last month alone, like I got another like 200 items from her. So it keeps me pretty active.
And I would also say to contact Mark, M-A-R-K, Phillips, P-H-I-L-L-I-P-S. It would just be mark.phillips@unt.edu. He deals with a lot of the nuts and bolts and the technical side of Keeper, and he could talk a lot more about that than I could.
Awesome. And then as far as the question, do you encounter any issues with FERPA with regards to student work? For the student work that I have dealt with, specifically in terms of Dr. Peters' students and their video projects, no, because it just contains their names and it's not mandatory. Anytime that I have suggested Keeper for student creative works, it has always been under the like, hey, if you want to preserve this and really kind of like show what you're doing as a student, we have this available, but the submissions don't include grades. They usually don't include any other information other than a name. And because students are giving like the rights agreement, the consent, when they submit it, we do have their consent to do that. Just to answer also Mary's question down here, if submissions of classwork are ever mandatory. Yeah, no, I would not want to make that mandatory.
No, they're very popular for extra credit, but not mandatory.
Yeah.
Let me see. I can share my screen and show y'all a little bit more about it. So people had asked how you can go to browse the university memory collection. That's on our digital library, and you can take a look at the university memory collection, which is the destination of the Keeper things. And all of these things are clickable. Like, for example, if you want to see what decades do we have Keeper things from, etc. And so you can go through and you can browse Keeper. And we also had a question about the Keeper site. That's also on the digital library. And let me move this bar out of the way. Keeper also has a back end that as an administrator you can go into. This is what the back end looks like. There is a login and all that. And that is where the submissions go as kind of their, I guess, purgatory, where before they receive judgment. And then we will see, there's some guys. This is our full list of ones that have been rejected or accepted. Everything is there that we've gotten from Keeper, all the back end things. Once metadata is created, they will go into another waiting place to be uploaded, and then they will get uploaded to the University Memory Collection.
Yeah, it looks like Eli was sharing that Mark's email, a link to the Keeper submission site. Another question related to that is, do either of you know how much digital space do videos and photos take up on Keeper and in the University Memory Collection?
I think that's a Mark question.
Not off the top of my head. All of that information would be on the back end of CODA, which again would be a Mark Phillip question.
All right. The next question we have, in light of the concerns presented in the plenary, how do you reconcile the digital mortgage you are slowly accumulating with trying to have a sustainable archival program?
I am not really sure. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the plenary this year. But, you know, digital records are archival records, and that is the reality of students. That is how most students are creating records. And I think we need to do whatever we can to stay on top of that and to stay responsive to our student communities. And yeah, sustainability is always an issue with, especially with electronic records. They require so much care and feeding to migrate them and to stay on top of new formats. But we would continue our education and we continue doing the best we can. And I know that that is not a perfect answer, but that is the answer that we have right now.
Great. The next question we have, and I think we've already sort of talked about this one a little bit in terms of we don't know on how Keeper was rolled out. And how it was promoted to students. As far as the first part of this question, the question is, I'm curious about the size of your institution and if you think that affects the amount of interaction by students. Also, could you speak about how Keeper was rolled out, how it was promoted to students? We are a pretty large institution, so I definitely think that plays a role in the submissions that we get. But I can let Eli and Jess speak more to that since they actually process the submissions.
Oh my God, UNT is growing really fast, so I'm totally blanking on the number of students, but I think we're at around, is it 50,000 now? I think that's what we are.
I think it's pretty close.
I should know that off the top of my head, and I'm sorry that I don't. We did talk a little bit about how Keeper was rolled out, but it has been publicized both through promotional materials like, you know, university history is in your hands, and through small cards that we put on outreach tables. And we do also highlight that in our social media and our blog posts. As I said, Rachel Zipper did a blog post that highlighted Keeper during COVID that really is kind of the start of getting a lot of entries in COVID. That was kind of like the, I guess, snowball that started the big, I hate to say avalanche, but big amount of Keeper things.
And then, yeah, we talked about how and where do submissions populate on the archivist end. If you reject an image, do you inform the student?
No, we don't. Most of the ones that I've had to reject so far have been straight up spam. We have a particular Russian spammer that is very fond of us. I don't know why we can't filter him out. But unless it is a student submitting for extra credit that needs to know you need to resubmit this to get extra credit, no, we don't usually inform them.
All right, and then we've got a couple of questions related to software. Would that also be a Mark question?
I'm sorry, I think it is a Mark question, unless you or Eli have something to offer. about that.
Oh, it looks like Eli shared a file.
Yeah, so
Oh,
I
yay.
am sharing the Documenting Times of Difficult and Crisis. This is the paper that Morgan Geringer, Mark Phillips, Anna Kramer, and all of the other digital libraries individuals that go into depth about like the Keeper's inception and you know, all of the nitty gritty that we ourselves cannot answer.
All right. We've got just a couple of more questions and still plenty of time. Do you know of any other institutions or groups that are using Keeper via GitHub?
Ooh, I am not aware of any.
I
If
don't-
there is anyone here that is aware of any, please let us know. I'd love to talk to them and figure out some questions with them. But no, so far I'm not aware of any.
And the last question is, when I search Keeper on Google, I get a lot of different programs. Can you share a link to which Keeper you are using? And I'm guessing that's the link that Eli shared with the Keeper submission page that they were looking for. Okay, yeah. So that one has been taken care of as well. So we currently have no open questions. Let me review the chat and make sure nothing has come through. I think we answered a lot of it.
I did see something about our gift agreement, so I'm going to share my screen one more time.
Yeah, the question is, does this follow a standard gift agreement, or is there a unique agreement specifically for this platform?
Okay, so when you go to Keeper, when you go to the way to submit things to Keeper, you go through this and you take a look at terms and conditions. There's a thing here that says your contribution is subject to the terms and conditions of the UNT Library's gift agreement. So that is our standard gift agreement. The Keeper's people are not filling that out, but by submitting to Keeper, they are agreeing to that gift agreement. And that's also down here by checking the box, you are saying, yeah, you're giving it to UNT.
Yeah, and it looks like Danielle added to the chat that shared links and documents that we've been posting in the chat throughout the session have been added to the resources tab. So if anybody needs to access those after the fact, they should be there.
Yeah, and feel free to contact any of us if you think of any questions or if there's a question we missed. I really like Keeper. I love talking about Keeper. So yeah, feel free to send me your questions. I freely admit I don't have all the answers, but I am working on getting them and researching them, and it definitely is an ongoing process.
Any last minute questions? Danielle, what do we do now?
You're welcome to end the session if you are finished.
All right.
Yeah, thanks everyone, and be sure to catch the wellness forum at the lunch break and then the repository short tour showcase following. Thanks.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.